The Chicago Bears are a bad football team. They are not good. And it's more than just the quarterback. It's a lot of stuff that's happening there. And so everybody's expecting, all right, what are the changes? Is there going to be firings? Are people going to be like what's the change that's going to happen in Chicago? The head coach, Matt Eberflus, spoke about that yesterday and also about, whether or not they're going to stick with Caleb Williams despite all the struggles.
Just in the process of getting that done, there will be changes, adjustments being made. Again, I'm not going to disclose those right now. I'm not at that point in the process. Monday's a long day in terms of the evaluation. It's important that we take time to make those decisions and make the right decisions. That's for the Bears, best for the Bears going forward for this week and then going into the future. So I think that's the most important thing that we do, that we have some steadiness here.
Matt, are you going to make a change to quarterback?
No, Caleb is our starter. The process is we've played some really good football. We've played complimentary football during the course of the year. We won some games in a row. So there is evidence on tape that we've had togetherness, complimentary football, played winning football. And for you to sit there and say that we haven't done that, that's not true.
So that is the latest.
We haven't done enough of that. I mean, let's be real.
From Chicago.
Let me ask you this question, because as I was scrolling through X, this came up, and I thought, I'm going to ask the boys about this. So, who is the comp for Caleb Williams when he was getting drafted, ready to come in the NFL?
Mahomes.
Right. And someone made the comment that, I guess we know what it would have been like had Patrick Mahomes come to the Bears, because that was the frustration from a lot of Bears fans was instead they went with Mitchell Trubisky at number 2 overall.
That's so dope. I see what you
and
just
so
did.
the comment they're making is that, I guess it wouldn't have mattered. We would have been any better because this is supposed to be the second coming, and look what we're doing with him in his rookie year. And this organization is so bad that they wouldn't know what to do with a Patrick Mahomes, even if he fell in their lap.
Well, there you go. But you're a bust, so you can't say it, right? That's what they'll say. You're disgruntled because you weren't Tom Brady.
Right.
You can't say that. You're upset.
Correct.
The moment somebody says what you just said, if they're smart enough, if you're a Bears fan and you're humble enough or you're aware enough to actually comprehend what Q just said, it is what it is. If you go to certain places, you are destined to be what the environment is that you're in. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line, especially at a development position. If Caleb Williams goes to Kansas City and has the same process that takes place with the coaching staff and that organization, does Caleb Williams end up being the person that everybody's saying, here's the comp,
yes.
here's the comp,
yes.
here's the comp?
Yes.
Maybe even better.
Yes.
And maybe even better because Caleb Williams might be better coming out of college than what Patrick Mahomes was.
That's the part that blows my mind that people can't figure out. That situation and environment dictates a lot.
It dictates everything.
That's why the term broken home is a real term.
It's a real term.
If you come from that environment, there's a lot going on there. It doesn't mean that you're just going to be isolated and they're going to talk about just you as a person. No, they're going to factor in all those other things around you. Be like, okay, let's cut them some slack here. And the idea that we're just going to say, well, you just insert player X here into team X here, and then this is how it would. No, man, situation dictates success in the NFL. You remember when the Browns were getting buried? People were ripping the Browns apart because they were like, oh my God, they passed on Carson Wentz and he went to Philly and look what he did early in his career. It's like, man, do you know the situation he had in Philly as opposed to what he would have had in Cleveland?
You remember when Aaron Rodgers was just getting a MVP of the league and then had a pretty decent year? The last year he was there and then went to a different team and that was a dysfunctional team. And then he realized that, whoa, wait, I'm playing for a dysfunctional team. And then you started seeing how Aaron Rodgers played, and then we started thinking about, well, maybe Aaron Rodgers is old. Maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't have it anymore. You remember that? You remember when that happened? You know why? Because the environment that he went in is not conducive to the skill level of any player, including Aaron Rodgers. It will not outperform dysfunction. It will not.
So, here's the part, and I want to ask you guys this because this is what it looks like to me. But obviously, you guys would know better than I would. And Brady, you would know because you actually played the position. It looks like to me, in watching Caleb Williams, that they're either asking him to do too much or he's trying to do too much.
Or it could be both.
I don't see any other rookie quarterback that's checking in and out of certain plays at the line of scrimmage, that's struggling to get plays in because of it feels like it's information overload. And he's overwhelmed by it. But he's missing throws. They can't keep him upright. He's taking sacks. You can blame the 9 sacks on the offensive line all you want. There was a handful of those that were on him. I just look at it and I go, it feels like there's too much going on, and he feels completely overwhelmed at this point. And we're halfway through the season.
There's a few issues that I see in watching his film, and the first is that he's relying too much on trying to create at times, and I've said it before, not take the easy one, try to go downfield. As the season's worn on, that was kind of my early initial impression of him. But as the season's worn on, now I see at times he looks hesitant. It's almost like he doesn't want to make a mistake, or he doesn't want to, put his team in a bad spot, almost like they're coaching him to be conservative at times with how he's playing. And so as far as the getting the plays in and out, that falls on two people. That's going to be on Shane Waldron and really Caleb. And I don't know, as far as the play calling process from Shane, from the sidelines into the helmet, how they're going about doing it. There's ways of speeding it up. I've always said to people, everyone looks at a wristband as a negative because they're like, well, what does the guy need a wristband?
You're
That's
stupid.
so college. So it's like, well, no, it's actually faster. So instead of me saying 0 out slot, 66 double seam snow alert 40, I just go play 2. And then he says 0 out slot, 66 double seam snow alert 40. And so in that, you're sitting there going to yourself, okay, if I had to say that play twice, clearly it takes longer. And the other thing about that is if you're on the road and there's some crowd noise and you're trying to cover up your helmet and you're saying, hey, say it again. And then you have to say it in the huddle and then other guys are asking you to say it again. There's a lot of things that happen in the course of an NFL huddle and that whole operation that it can take time. So you got to get the play calling fast and the personnel in fast. That's number one. But even the process of how they go about doing it can sometimes be inefficient. And again, I can't speak to what they're doing, but it's one of the things where if you're having a hard time getting play calls in with a rookie, just give him a wristband, man. It almost ensures that you're not going to get the improper play call because it's right there on his wristband. He can read it. I personally feel like most football players are visual learners. The other reason why I always liked wristbands for players is because they see the word and it creates a picture in their head. It's easier for them to memorize.
I agree.
And so when you have a quarterback who sees it, reads it off, he's able to more vividly tell everyone what they have and all that because it's reinforced in him what that play is. You go back to Install 101. You see it in a playbook. You see it on an iPad now. And then it translates onto, watching it on tape, walking through it. Then you go into practice. Then you go into a game. So it takes you back to that initial install of, oh, yeah, I remember what this was. I remember what's supposed to be. All those things. So, again, I can't speak exactly to how they go about doing it, but it does feel like there's more efficient ways of getting the play in the huddle and getting that play off.
Here's the other thing I want to ask you, because I brought this up to VAR, I think, the week before, because this was a story that came out. Apparently they didn't – so, you've always scripted plays going into games, right? Like the first 15
first 10, first 15, first 20, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Apparently they weren't doing that at the start of the season. There was no script. There was just a set of plays we'll probably run. And you had guys like DJ Moore who finally went to Shane Waldron and the coaching staff and just said, hey, can we have a plan here? Can we have some sort of a – it just feels like – so nickel and dime, everything around him, yet he's supposed to be the franchise quarterback. And we've talked about this before. Look, Rome Odunze's having an okay start to his career. He's clearly talented, But Olu was there and available to be drafted, and they went wide receiver. And I just don't get it. I don't they're building everything on the outside, the defense, they've got all this money invested everywhere else, but their offensive line is in shambles. And it feels like, why would you overlook the most important part of your offense for a young quarterback like that just to go out and make splash draft picks after you already went out and traded for Keenan Allen?
It's easier to find wide receivers than it is offensive linemen in the NFL. I mean, that's just how it is, or in the draft per se. It's easier to find guys who are going to come in and be a day one cornerstone starter, all right, at wide receiver in other rounds of the draft or even undrafted free agents. It's easier to find those guys than it is on the offensive line. And so I'm with you on that. I always feel like when you look at the first round, if you're not talking quarterback, you're talking up front. You're talking tackles. You're talking edge players. Then as you subsequently, if you don't really need that, even though you always eventually need that, you need depth, etc., then you start looking at more of that cornerback position, in particular for me, then wide receiver. I think if you look at wide receivers too, they have a hard time, especially early on, but specifically the rookie year, breaking into the league and making the type of impact that teams are hoping that they will be able to make. It might be flashes here and there, but consistently, it's pretty hard. I mean, the Puka Nakuas and what he was able to do his rookie year is pretty rare. So that's the other reason why I would do that. But I want to go back to the scripting because I do feel like there's a little bit of a misnomer with that. I mean, the reality is you can script off plays. All you're really doing is intelligence gathering. You're putting out there in formations and personnels, and what you're doing is you're trying to confirm what you saw on film coming into the game and how you think they're going to play it. So the reality is if you script plays, that's fine. You get more practice at least running those specific plays for the beginning of the game, so it should be a more crisp operation. But if they come out doing something different than you thought, or there's a matchup, that maybe isn't going well early on the way you think, or once you get off in a couple of second and longs or a couple of third and longs, you might have, a third and 2 to 3, a third and 4 to 6, a third and 7 to 9, a third and 10 plus third down play to run that you really like first off the board. But if you get a couple of those in that drive, you're kind of already off script as it is. Like, I would say this too. A lot of the best coaches I'd been around, when they divided up situations, not in this category of, hey, we always do it's third and short. We do 2 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9. They always said, well, where does the defense change? Like, at what point does the defensive coordinator say, yeah, it might be 3rd and 5s or 3rd and 6. They stop playing as much man-to-man and they start playing more zone. Or if they're bringing a pressure, it's not man-to-man pressure. It's going to be some sort of zone pressure. Or is it 3rd and 8 plus where they start playing more of a cover 2 Tampa and they start playing more soft? Now, everyone's got tendencies and they're going to try to combat those tendencies by mixing in different calls. But for the most part, if you watch enough film, if you divide it up enough, you get more of a sense of the identity. And so you kind of have to script and create a game plan around what you're going up against and what you're anticipating you're getting, but also what they are. And oftentimes, teams try to kind of put like a defense and how they play different situations into their box. And it doesn't really work that way. Like you've got to be able to kind of fine, tooth comb through, how they play certain situations, because that's what the NFL is. It's situational football. It's matchups. So I can't speak to what they're doing in Chicago. But if they weren't scripting, it's not the best sign, but it's also not the end of the world.
Mm. You're also going to look at who the best players are too, right? Like if you're going up and you're coming into a game where they have a premier edge rusher, and it's like Micah Parsons or somebody like that, you're going to script based off of what the strength of that
that's
defense.
why I said matchups.
Yeah, the matchup.
Yeah.
Just so looking at it from that perspective as well, it's like, all right, you got a cover corner guy over here that is like he stays on this side, he doesn't travel, or he does travel. You'll have scripted plays, matchups. But
they're going to get sawed off by Green Bay this weekend.
You just never know, man.
I do.
You never know.
Team stinks.
You never know, bro. They almost beat Washington, and Washington is a pretty good team, bro. It's just the one thing you can always expect from a team that isn't a good team or a great team is inconsistency. That's the most consistent thing you can expect from a team that isn't good, is that they're inconsistent. So they're not going to be consistently losing games. They're not going to consistently be bad. They might have a moment where they beat a team they weren't supposed to win against just because they're inconsistent. So this game they might perform at a higher level, and that might lead to them winning a game against the Green Bay Packers.